I was hired as an expert on the appropriate police response. The main facts were undisputed, but the wrongful death case hinged on whether, given the known history of domestic violence and the 911 conversation, police should have recognized Terry's risk. Because victims are often too afraid to identify abuse, a basic tenet of police training is that they must respond to a domestic violence call even if a victim countermands a previous request. But the lawyer representing the town raised an additional issue. Had they come to the house, he asked, what could police have done to prevent Terry's death? I recounted the results of my investigation. Philip's assaults on Terry were well known to the woman's family, neighbors, and workmates, as well as to the police. The recent arrest and the autopsy confirmed that domestic violence was ongoing. Most impressive was Philip's behavior after his earlier arrest. In the week before the killing, he had locked his wife out of their bedroom and forced her to sleep on the living room couch. She was limited to one meal a day, such as the slice of cold pizza found in the refrigerator. Philip had taken the toilet paper from the downstairs bathroom and forbidden her to use the upstairs bathroom. He had taken her money and her car keys. He had forbidden her to go to work, speak to friends or family members on the phone, or watch TV. He had also kept her from touching her baby except to breastfeed, and he had repeatedly threatened to kill her. When she took her son and ran across the lawn, Terry was a hostage in her own home. Police could have learned this with minimal probing. The lawyer looked perplexed. What would police have done that night that would have made a difference? He asked again. I suddenly realized he wanted me to concede that there was little the officers could have done under Connecticut's Family Violence Prevention Act, even had they learned about the deprivations, threats, restraints on Terry's movement, and the prior violence. Philip could have been arrested for minor offenses. But because there was no evidence that Terry had been seriously injured on that night, he would be released the next day, almost certainly angrier than before. Connecticut's statute is typical of domestic violence laws generally. Until he shot his wife, Philip Traficanda had not committed a serious crime. The town settled the lawsuit on a technicality. The officers involved had not completed the legally required domestic violence training, and the civilian dispatcher had received none at all. But the attorney's question continued to gnaw. Some months later, the same issue resurfaced. To battered women's advocates, myself included, the killing of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman in June 1994 was the logical culmination of O.J. Simpson's repeated assaults, threats, obsessive jealousy, and attempts to control Nicole's life, including his use of a woman friend to follow her. Simpson had been arrested only once for domestic violence, but his letters to Nicole, her terrified 911 call, as well as other evidence, documented 9 abusive incidents, including one in which he had smashed her car windows with a baseball bat. Experience told me there had probably been dozens of unreported incidents. In its initial brief, the prosecutors called the homicide the ultimate act of control. But at trial, they decided to downplay the abuse evidence because they were convinced jurors would not grasp its seriousness. They never called their domestic violence experts and relied instead on physical evidence. Their hunch was confirmed after Simpson's acquittal. One juror called the domestic violence a smokescreen and asked, "What did all the talk about domestic abuse have to do with homicide?" Another juror was more candid. "If they wanted to talk about domestic violence," she said, "they should have gone down the hall to domestic violence court." I had been working on various facets of woman battering since the early 1970s. But these cases crystallized my growing sense that a huge chasm separated the experiences of abused women from the prevailing approach to domestic violence. The danger faced by Terry Traficanda and Nicole Brown Simpson was not